From NBC 10 News, political coverage you trust. Welcome to a Decision 2014 debate, the Republican primary race for governor of Rhode Island. Here's political reporter Bill Rapley.
Hello and welcome to Johnson & Wales University's Schneider Auditorium in Xavier Hall for NBC 10's Voice of the Voter debate. Now, while I am the moderator, all the questions tonight come from Channel 10 viewers who submitted questions by email and Twitter, and some will actually be here and ask their questions in person. Today, the election season is officially underway. The candidates for Republican nomination have been certified by the Secretary of State, and the candidates tonight will get a chance to discuss each of the questions that they are asked for about 5 minutes. So it'll be my job to make sure that they each get equal time. And you, of course, as viewers, are encouraged to tweet to continue this conversation. We're using the hashtag NBC10debate. So let's begin our Voice of the Voters debate. Allan Fung is the 3-term mayor of Cranston, a former city councilor. Ken Block is the founder of a software company who ran for governor in 2010 under the banner of the Moderate Party, which he founded that year. But our first question tonight will come from viewer Mark Spout to address his question to Ken Block.
Hello, candidates. Rhode Island is constantly being ranked last. I see this consistently. They're always being ranked last. What drastic changes will you make as governor that the last 5 governors seem to have not been able to make?
Thank you for your question. It's the most important issue in this race. How do we bring our economy back? How do we get jobs brought back to this state? How do we solve the problem where persistently Rhode Island has the country's highest unemployment rate? The reason we have the high unemployment rate is because we have one of the worst ranked economies in the whole country. Those two facts come bound together. To bring jobs back, to turn ourselves around, we have to address the issues that make us economically uncompetitive. And those issues are elements like the cost of our unemployment insurance, the cost of our temporary disability insurance, the general business unfriendliness that we have here, both at the state level and inside our capital city of Providence. We have such a high-cost place of doing business that we have to bring it down for that to happen. Now, the fixes are very common sense. The fixes are doing things that other states have already done, whether it's special economic development zones for the Route 195 land, applying changes to the unemployment insurance that other states have already applied to their unemployment insurance program, the temporary disability insurance program, which you can buy in most other states for half the cost of what it is here. It's applying basic common sense, and it's doing things that other states have already done. I don't consider the changes drastic. I consider them just looking at the obvious and applying what other states have done well and applying that here.
So, Mayor Fung.
And I have applied a lot of those common sense solutions with real results within the city of Cranston. Reforms watching every single dollar that's come within our city budget. Consolidation, making sure that we're working efficiently. We've had to make cuts in personnel. Pension reform. And this year alone, we've shaved $6 million to help the taxpayers for a 3rd straight year not have a property tax increase. And most importantly, moving public sector benefits into the private sector. I'm proud of the fact that we've had 2 major unions move into 401ks. Those are the same type of results I want to bring as your next governor into the public sector at the State House. But during that time as mayor, during my 3 terms as mayor, we've also had the opportunity to create an environment working with small, medium, and big businesses to make sure that they know they have a chief executive that is on their side. And we create an environment that has added over 1,000 new jobs in Cranston. That's what I want to take, because as governor, I will be that chief executive officer by putting into place a $200 million tax reduction plan. That $200 million will cut our corporate tax, our estate tax, and our sales tax, and make it one of the most competitive in the Northeast. That will send a message both inside and outside to business owners that we care about them and haven't forgotten about them.
So, Mayor Fung, and this will come back to you, Mr. Block, as well. Is there then no dramatic game-changing initiative that you think could help move Rhode Island?
For me, that $200 million tax reduction plan is a game changer because it will make us one of the most competitive in the Northeast. And that's why I'm pushing it and pushing it sternly. It's the most competitive out of all the gubernatorial candidates that first will stop the flight with the sales tax reduction to at least equal Massachusetts, stop our people from going into the Mass border, hopefully encouraging them to stay here locally, making sure that our corporate tax, that minimum corporate tax, not forgetting about the small business owners, is cut in half at the start, and if we can get lower, to get lower. That's going to send a strong message to business owners here and outside the state.
So is that the way to go, Mr. Fung? Is incrementally?
Well, there's nothing small about the plans that I've discussed. We're going to put $1 billion back into the pockets of taxpayers and back into the pockets, or frankly fix the huge coming budget deficit that's coming at us. We're going to save $1/3 billion, $1/3 billion over 4 years when we fix the broken unemployment insurance system. We're going to save $1/3 billion when we fix, over 4 years again, when we fix the broken temporary disability insurance program, putting on average $200 to $400 back into the paychecks of working Rhode Islanders. So those are gigantic numbers. Those are game-changing numbers. But when we talk about numbers, very quickly, Allan Fung's $200 million tax reduction program, he doesn't know how to pay for it. $83 million of that $200 million, he says, will come from a combination of a budget surplus, which everybody in the state knows we don't have, because we have a $150 million structural deficit this year. And he also counts nearly $13 million from savings by not paying the 38 Studios bonds, and he has no control over that. The General Assembly has made it very clear
All right.
that they're going to do that.
So, what's your response, Mayor? And then you can take it.
Absolutely.
Look at it if you want.
I'd be happy to. When you take a look at what I've done in Cranston, we have made difficult decisions and difficult cuts. And with that $200 million plan, I have supported it with cuts, realistic cuts, surgical cuts within the state budget.
And the surplus, where's the surplus come from?
No, the $70 million surplus that was projected earlier, I was projecting to roll it into the next fiscal year to use. However, the bulk of what I'm talking about to support my plan is cuts. Personnel cuts of 5% will help about and save about $48 million. And we're talking also about controlling the growth of our state budget overall to even just inflationary aspects. That's about $70 million right there.
All right, do you feel that Mr. Block's proposal to put money back into taxpayers' pockets is realistic?
No, it's not. In
What's
fact,
that?
he's been called out by former Governor Allan. Former Governor Allan, who's done 8 budgets during his 2 terms as governor, called it unrealistic. You've got a
All right,
pragmatic
so you
approach to
say,
myself.
all right, we're gonna, do you want one
I have to
last
say,
word? It's gotta be quick.
Mayor Fung still hasn't said where the $70 million would come from. There was no answer to that. He's not funding nearly half of his plan. That makes it a half-baked plan. And the last thing that we need in Rhode Island is another politician talking about numbers and budgets that are only halfway there. This is a primary example of, in my opinion, insider politics, playing games with numbers, and not fixing the real problems that we have in this state.
Bill, with all due respect, my career and my record within the city of Cranston stands for itself. We have performed and have finished without 3 straight years of tax increases with audited numbers that show a surplus.
All right, we're moving on then. Thank you, gentlemen.
Real results.
That obviously the debate over these tax plans is going to continue throughout the campaign. This question comes from Walter Wall of Pawtucket. And his question is, how will you handle the growing problem of illegal immigrants in the state of Rhode Island that is costing taxpayers millions of dollars every year? And of course, this takes on added contemporary nature, given that we have this question of whether or not states will help house the unattended minors who are coming across the border. And I know Connecticut has said they don't want to. Massachusetts said they're looking at it. If you were governor, what would you do about the unattended minors who are coming here illegally?
Well, first of all, on immigration, we have to support the laws and enforce the laws that are on the books right now. If that question were to come to me as governor, I would say, no, we can't afford right now to sustain the services that we have already in place in the state of Rhode Island. So it's very difficult. I empathize with the situation that the federal government has to deal with, but we cannot afford to make it Rhode Island's problem.
How would you deal with the unattended minor issue, which these children are being classified as refugees,
Correct.
coming from war countries where they can document their fear for their life?
At this point in time, with our constrained resources, we as a state are not doing enough to care enough for our people who are here now, for the legal residents who are here now. This is a humanitarian crisis. There's no question about it. But in the state that struggles worse than every other state in the country, Rhode Island, this cannot be a burden that we can afford to bear at this time.
Would neither of you allow people to take them in as foster children?
Well, now you have a secondary problem. The secondary problem is, again, unchecked, illegal immigration. We, as a state and as a country, can't afford to have two different paths of immigration. I've helped employees immigrate legally. I spent tens of thousands of dollars to find the legal pathway to bring people in. And it's fundamentally unfair and broken that we have a secondary path as well. We have a gigantic federal problem that has to be well addressed, and it's not being well addressed right now. All of these problems that we're seeing is a symptom of failed policy at the national level.
And what about having...
You know, for me, it has to be comprehensive federal immigration reform that has to be passed. What can't happen is consistent, what you're seeing is a consistent effort by different states to take on different issues. And this issue in particular is a federal issue, and it has to be addressed in that way in a comprehensive manner.
And since it's not, what would you do about the people who are living here now who don't have documentation?
Oh, and that's the thing. One of the things that we really have to be sensitive about is how we handle it as a state and as governors. I would support E-Verify. It's done in the private sector, and it should be applied in the public sector as well. And as much as I feel, I do not support providing driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants that are here. The services that we provide as government officials are already strained.
So I'm hearing from both of you, you'd like to make it as unpleasant as possible for illegal immigrants to come to Rhode Island so they go somewhere else.
That's not what I said at all.
Well, tell me.
Neither did I.
Then tell me how you're welcoming them. I mean,
listen,
if you're not trying to get them to leave, what is your strategy?
In the simplest terms, what I'm saying is that we have broken federal immigration policy. States, in no way, shape, or form, in my opinion, should be trying to set federal policy by cobbling together their own individual rules about what to do or not to do with illegal immigrants. We can't have a patchwork of 50 different solutions to what ultimately must be, and legally has to be, a federal solution.
So what do you want to do with the people that are here?
That's,
You
again,
don't want them to have driver's
I'm running for governor, I'm
licenses?
not running for president, thank goodness.
But
what we
I'm
need
talking about
to
people living
do,
in Rhode Island, not people living in Mississippi.
what we need to do is we need the federal government to solve that problem. But states cannot solve that problem.
Mr. Block. What do you do as governor with thousands of illegal immigrants whose children are going to school in Pawtucket, Central Falls?
Any child who's in school right now is constitutionally there, right? The federal law says that that's the case. I'm not proposing we do anything with the people who are here right now. That is a federal immigration problem, it's not a state issue.
And you don't want them to have driver's licenses?
Absolutely not, because now you're beginning to set immigration policy locally or state level, and it has to be a national solution.
So what is it, start them out? Well, I don't understand. If they can't get driver's licenses, they can't go to work, you don't want to do anything until...
By the way, federal law says if you don't have a valid federal tax ID, you're not allowed to work.
Mr. Fung.
I believe in the same thing where we have to have comprehensive immigration reform that has a pathway to the people that are
It'd be
here.
nice to have peace on earth as well,
but-
but this clearly isn't going to happen anytime
But
soon.
Bill, what we can't keep doing is taking on more responsibility when we can't afford what we have right now to support the citizens of our state. I empathize with many people, but my parents came here legally. Back when they came here, they had to have someone sponsor them, and they had to make sure that they have a job and employed. It's a different system now, but what can't happen is unfettered discretion coming into Rhode Island or any other state and getting a lot of our services that right now are being strained by the people that are hurting because of our economy right now. We have to really reform our economy first, get people back to work. That's the most important critical issue in this campaign. And that starts with someone who's got real results, within the city of Cranston that can translate that to the State House.
All right, we're going to move on to the next question, and it is coming from Thomas Bruces from East Greenwich.
Yes, first I'd like to thank both candidates for their personal sacrifices in running for governor and trying to further the lively experiment that is the state of Rhode Island. During Rhode Island's rich history, we have had 11 constitutional conventions. To put that in some sort of perspective, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has had 0. In the ballot, as it has to be every 10 years, our voters in November have to decide whether or not they want a constitutional convention or not at this particular time. What is your opinion on that? Do you support that, and why? And I'd also like to consider in your answer the time and the expenses and the effort that has to be put into that, especially at a time when Rhode Island's economy is not at its most optimal, to say the least.
Mr. Fung, why don't you start this time?
You know, I am a strong supporter of a constitutional convention, Mr. Bruzzese, and here's why. Right now, we have a government system where there's too much power, in my opinion, in the General Assembly. And we can fix that by ensuring, first of all, that we put the General Assembly back under the Ethics Commission control. I also am supportive of term limits for the General Assembly members. But most importantly, we have to empower more the governor's office with the line item veto, particularly with respect to that budget. I have it in Cranston. If you use it effectively, you can get things accomplished. And I also believe in a voter initiative. These are part of the good government reforms that I put out when I announced my campaign months ago.
Yeah, I've been a long-term supporter of a constitutional convention. The line item veto in Rhode Island is a crucial tool that our governor needs. And the reason for that is 44 other states give their governors the power of the line item veto, and we don't. And our budgeting process, which is unbelievably broken at the state level, demands some sort of check and balance, because when a budget goes out the door right now from the General Assembly, there are no options except to accept it or to reject it. There's no in between. The governor needs to be able to pull individual elements out. When I was pushing very, very hard to eliminate the master levy, I heard two things. I heard it wasn't possible to do. You can't get the General Assembly to do something that they don't want to do. And by the way, we have a crisis. We can't afford to spend any time on getting rid of the master levy. It's crucially important for our state to make our government fundamentally better than what it is right now. It's broken. We have an imbalance of power, and it kills us. Because we don't have a balance between the executive branch and the legislative branch, we suffer. Each and every taxpayer in this state suffers because the democratically controlled General Assembly all too often plays fast and loose with our money, and there's no way for the Republican governor to do much about it. We have to balance that situation because it's killing us right now the way it is.
Well, so Mayor, you both would like to see a constitutional convention. Both, as aspiring governors, would like to see a line item veto. Aren't you concerned about the mischief that could happen in a constitutional convention? Would you, for example, be pleased if it came up with a voter initiative referendum policy?
Voter initiative is something I certainly advocated for and would support. You always have to be on guard with respect to any type of mischief that can happen. But I strongly believe that our government can't continue on the same path that it's been doing right now. We're sitting with one of the worst tax scenarios that we have right now, based upon policies that have been implemented by the General Assembly and our government leaders for years, for decades. And this is what has to change. Changing the governance structure is an important part. Making sure ethics and good government is also an important part, and putting it back into the voice of the people.
So you have any concerns about special interests taking over a constitutional convention? It'd be a little easier to do that than the General Assembly, perhaps.
My whole campaign is based on concern about what special interests have done to this state. In terms of the Constitutional Convention, I'm not worried about it. The reason for that is because ultimately the voters of this state have to approve each proposed change inside a constitutional convention, and I have the utmost confidence and respect for the Rhode Island voter to do the right thing. And as governor, I will drive the conversation about the Constitutional Convention. I will highlight the issues that we need to address in that Constitutional Convention. I will push it, and I will make sure that we pay attention and do the right things, and if anything comes up that we shouldn't be doing, I will be a loud and strong advocate against it.
And as you saw, Bill, many special interests came out opposed to it. And I think they're afraid of what the voters of Rhode Island would put forward to reform what's going on right now.
Okay, our next question is from Renee Cruzona from Warwick. And she asks, are you in favor of or opposed to drug testing people who receive state aid? And this is part of a broader question about trying to ferret out fraud in people receiving benefits. Mr. Fung.
I'm a believer that the government needs to stay out of people's business as much as humanly possible, as much as governmentally possible is what I probably should say. I am a forefront foe of fraud in social service spending programs. My company found, identified, and eliminated, my team did, $1 billion of waste and fraud in Texas's food stamp program. And for the state of Rhode Island, we did a free waste and fraud analysis where we found dead people spending and receiving food stamp benefits from the grave. We found prisoners at the ACI using their Medicaid benefits all over the place. The thing we need to do on waste and fraud, and this is a really important point, when we go after food stamp fraud, we're not going after welfare mothers. What we're doing is we're ensuring that any children who depend on food stamp benefits for nutrition, that those benefits are spent on the children, and that they're not being spent on something other than food. When we watch where our dollars go, by the way, there's $140 million tied up in our Medicaid program in waste and fraud.
Okay, I've got to.
But we need to find this waste and recover it. It's the only way we're going to be able to cut the spending necessary to dig ourselves out of the hole.
Drug testing for welfare receivers?
I'm against it.
I would support initiatives that would help cut down on waste and fraud, whether it's photo identifications or even drug testing, because drug testing can also lead to getting person help off of any type of drug dependency that might be had in there. So any type of situation or any type of program that can help reduce and root out waste and fraud in our benefit services, I would be supportive of, because they are asking for our public dollars, and we need to make sure that it's not being wasted in any way. However, I do want to address one point about Ken's so-called expertise that he had in rooting out waste and fraud. It's already been reported that his report has led to nothing by one media source.
All right, we are going to go to closing statements now. We got to the end here. Allan Fung gets to go first. Ken
I go first.
Mr. Black will go first. Thank you. That's how you guys are running for governor. All right.
Can you give me a little sign? There's maybe 30 seconds left.
Yes.
So thank you. A lot of folks ask me why it is that I'm running for governor. What's driving me? What is it that is pushing me to run for governor? I have two children, my 12-year-old son, Sam, and my 10-year-old daughter, Anna. And I know if we don't turn around our economy, if we can't figure out how to stuff the 195 land full of jobs, that my children very likely won't have a future here, that they're going to be forced to leave the state like so many other children have done to find the opportunities that they deserve. We have to address the crisis in this state where we are suffering economically. And everybody that I'm running against, every candidate for governor, fails to meet the metric of a workable plan that will solve that problem. I have one. We have watched politicians fail us for decades. For decades, we haven't seen the answers that we desperately need to fix what's so broken here. Career politicians don't have the answer. Allan Fung has said, you can't find waste and fraud. You know who the last politician was who said that to me? Lincoln Chafee. Allan and Lincoln Chafee agree that you can't find waste and fraud. It surrounds us. The federal government confirms it's there. I am an expert at finding it. We will make it happen. We have no choice. I have the expertise. I know how to make things run efficiently. And our government, as everybody here knows, doesn't run efficiently, whether it's paper-based timesheets for state employees, to a malfunctioning DMV, to who knows what else it is. We deserve better from our government than we're getting, and I am absolutely driven to make the changes that we so desperately need to get that done. We can change this state. I know we can do it because we watched Massachusetts turn themselves around. We used to call Massachusetts Taxachusetts, and now we do not. We don't, because they fundamentally changed the way they do business, and we can do the same thing here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Block. Mayor Fung. your
Now,
closing statement.
thanks again, Channel 10, Johnson & Wales University, for hosting this very important Republican gubernatorial debate. Thank you all for attending, and thank you to the viewers for watching tonight. You know, today you did hear a stark contrast between myself. You know, my opponent, who started the moderate party, gave us 4 years of Lincoln Chafee. I, on the other hand, have been a proud Republican that served the people of Cranston and the people of the state of Rhode Island during my decade of public service. Rhode Island needs a proven leader who not only has the necessary skill set and experience, but also a sense of urgency, an urgency to get things done. In Cranston, we've done it. Real results, real reforms. We've cut personnel, consolidated services, moved new employees into 401ks, obtained pension reform, saving Cranston taxpayers alone $6 million in this budget year. And that's led to 3 straight years without a property tax increase. Real results from real reforms that we've implemented. And because of these reforms, we've been able to work with the business owners, small, medium, and large within the city of Cranston. During my administration, we've created over 1,000 new private sector jobs that have helped put people back to work. And I'm running for governor because I want to put people back to work. And on day 1 of a Fung administration, we will declare Rhode Island is open for business. CEOs, both inside and outside the state, will know that they have a partner in the Fung administration, and that begins with that $200 million tax reduction plan that I talked about tonight. From cutting the corporate tax, the sales tax, and that estate tax, it's going to make our state one of the most competitive from a tax advantage standpoint in the Northeast. And that's going to make sure it sends a message to people here in the state and outside that we mean business, and we're going to put people back to work. Together, we can turn the state around.
Well, Mayor Fung, thank you very much. Mr. Block, thank you. Thank both of you for coming tonight. Thank to Johnson & Wales University for this tremendous venue. And I hope that all of you who are watching and listening will be going to the polls. The primary date is September 9th, and we'll narrow down who will be the Republican candidate for governor. I'm Bill Rapley. This is NBC 10. Thank you for watching.